The 1980s was the decade of the hot hatch as the car of choice for the driving enthusiast. But at the end of that decade, 1989, Mazda introduces the MX5, the cheap, simple, affordable, low performance, but very fun roadster. And while the MX5 did start a revolution, there was still plenty of driving enthusiasts that wanted a car that was still fun and fast, but you could put your shopping in and take the kids to school in. As a result, there was a resurgence of the hot hatch, like this, the Peugeot 106 GTI. These days, both these cars are modern classics of roughly similar pricing and a similar cult following, but if you want one today, which should you choose? But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition. Well, Joe, here we are in the original MX5, a very early one, H-Reg 1990 1.6 Roadster. This is the MX5 that introduced not only the MX5, but the idea of the affordable Roadster to the 1990s.
Yes, indeed, a revolution on four wheels, Jack.
Where basically Mazda looked at the Lotus Elan and the MGB, sprinkled some Japanese mechanical reliability and build quality into the mix, and had a smash hit, really.
They took all the things that actually we love about classic sports cars, the roof down, the modest proportions, the rear wheel drive, enough power to have fun with but not enough to be scary, but they combined it with some Japanese common sense, things like a heater that works and a roof that actually seals and an engine which starts and is oil tight. But that's kind of the same reason why the Japanese took over the British car market in the 1970s in general, not just with sports cars. The key to moving forward as far as Mazda were concerned was looking back.
And it does, it really just looks like a Lotus Elan lightly tweaked. The big irony being that Lotus actually introduced their own Elan a few weeks after the MX5 and it looked nothing like the Elan.
No, and it was front wheel drive. But we've covered that before, go and watch that video. The key to it, I think, was its mechanical simplicity. The engine sourced from the 323 hatchback.
Yeah, gearbox from a pickup truck.
And a brilliant gearbox as well.
Yeah, not that you know it.
Sneaky little manual.
Yeah, and you don't really have to move your arm, you just sort of flex your fingers. And unlike a Triumph Spitfire or anything, every gear, every time, you don't have to worry about the synchromesh dithering or the MX5 in a nutshell. It just does what you want it to do every time, and what it does is absolutely predictable. I mean,
there are plenty of people that have accused it of not having the character of an MGB, and you perhaps you could argue that, but ultimately it gave you all the good bits of an MGB, with none of the downsides. You didn't have to start it with crossed fingers, you didn't have to put a bit of cardboard under it to stop it oil staining your driveway because actually it was put together properly.
All the driving bits work.
And the engineering was well thought out as well, wasn't it? 50-50 weight distribution to make it feel balanced, down to putting the battery in the boot and things like that. Double wishbone suspension, so it's properly engineered so it can have fantastic geometry. So the question is, Jack, we're on a winding British B road, you're in a really nice condition MX5, what's it like?
It's just brilliant fun. It's not exciting, it's fun. Drop a gear.
Away we go.
30 to 60, and that's the thing about the MX5, it's not fast. We weren't having the skin ripped off our faces.
Not scary.
There were no white knuckles, but that's fun. Going through the manual gearbox, you've got your naturally aspirated twin cam engine singing away. This is the 1.6, it's the one that's not as gutsy as the bigger 1.8, but it sings, it's zippy, it's responsive, on the brakes, into third, tip it in, bit of heel and toe, round we go, and round there, it's fun, it's safe.
Feels great, smile on the face.
Smile on the face.
That's what it's all about.
It is. Wind in your hair.
Smells.
The smells, the exhaust noise.
It's just brilliant.
It is brilliant, it is brilliant.
If you type into a computer how to make a sports car,
this will come up.
But it was not unattainable. This wasn't a 30 grand car, did you see? It was 14, 15.
And neither was it a Group 20 insurance prospect either, which was the key. That was the key thing. This is why people were casting around for alternatives to the hot hatch in this period. Fun, of a different sort to a hot hatch, but definitely fun. And it was affordable to run as well. And that's why everyone else got on that bandwagon as well in the mid-90s, and suddenly the Roadster was back. Must have been a bit of a gamble, the idea of let's bring back the classic style Roadster, and they absolutely got it 100% right first time.
And it wasn't just a great sports car, it was a great car. You know, it was reliable, it was economical, there's 35 watts to the gallon on a run. There's loads of space in here, we're not elbowing each other, we've got storage pockets, we've got a glove box. This could be your only car.
But what if you do have kids or you want something with boot space?
There was still a market for hot hatches, Jack, and that meant that in the mid-90s, there was a resurgence for the hot hatch.
Max power.
Oh yes.
Bring it on.
So the iconic hot hatch era of the 1980s, if you ask most people what the best car of that era was, what do they say?
The 80s is going to be either a Golf GTI or a Peugeot 205. Usually the 205 is the one that edges it out.
Indeed, so Peugeot have already got a pretty good CV. Now, by the 90s, Peugeot didn't make a sports car. Peugeot in France was still making affordable people's cars, small city cars, like the 106 in fact,
Indeed.
which was an evolution of the 205 in many ways. They decided it was time for a performance variant because they were never going to make a sports car, but there was clearly still a demand for a performance driver's car that could hold more than one person, who could actually take some luggage, you know, kids, dog. So, a reinvention or reinvigoration of an iconic nameplate. GTI. There were hot hatches in the 1990s before this one. There was the Renault Clio Williams, very limited production, quite expensive. The Delta Integrale lived on from the 80s, hugely expensive. Ford Escort Cosworth, which was expensive and all but uninsurable.
Yeah, but these are all homologation, high performance, low volume, they say big cost stuff. The idea of the accessible hot hatch for everyone that is just a ordinary car with a big engine in the front, taking a breather.
So this is where Peugeot came in to reintroduce it, starting with the looks. Now, 205 GTI definitely looked sportier than the standard car, and it's the same with the 106. We've got a body kit, we've got pumped up arches, we've got some very nice 5-spoke alloys, we've got a spoiler, little red badges here and there. I think it looks great.
It really does. That's the classic hot hatch makeover. Take ordinary Super Mini, put some red badges and all those little bits on it. Wide stance. It
looks classy but cool.
Yeah.
And it was all clothing typical hot hatch mechanicals. So starting with suspension, lower, firmer for sharper handling. We've got thicker anti-roll bars, and it was all helping the engine. We've got a bigger engine in here as well,
of course.
as is hot hatch tradition. The TU engine, 1.6 litre, which we got in various PSA cars, about 110 horsepower, which in a car that weighs sub 1,000 kilos,
easily,
plenty. Is it fast? Do you know what it actually is?
Picks up, and you get that lovely induction howl as well.
Oh, this is totally standard, no induction kit on this baby, but that sounds really good. And it does go well. I mean, 0 to 60, 8-ish seconds.
I would say it feels quicker than that. I'm sure that's just because it's so small and light, but it feels
small, light, fizzy.
Yeah.
Just like its granddad. Should we talk about the handling?
Go on, there's a corner coming up. You're the one behind the wheel.
Hard, heel and toe, down into second here. Let's fling her in. Oh, it grips well.
Oh, that's some good lateral G's there.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. It grips well. It encourages you to play with it. The steering is perfectly filsome enough for a 90s Super Mini. Chuck it in. Go on, girl. A little bit of rotation from the back as well.
That really was a chuck. That was a good. I was almost like picking it up and just throwing it in. Yeah.
Oh, it encourages it so much. It's great. It's small. It's nimble. It's fizzy. It feels a lot like a 205 GTI in a great many ways.
Which is, as compliments go,
quite high.
Quite high.
Just like a hot hatch should be. It's not as mature as a Golf GTI, it's not as refined, but it's more refined than a 205 actually, I have to say. That's the other thing. This car did modernise the 205 and indeed the GTI in a number of ways. It's quieter in here, it's a bit comfier. We've got modern fixtures and fittings. I've got an airbag, I've got a nicer stereo, electric windows. This is a more modern interpretation of that classic 80s formula, just like the MX5 did for the 60s sports cars that inspired it.
Definitely a more mature, more grown up, more polished product.
You could justify having this as your car in the 90s in a way that you maybe couldn't the 205, but it's still so much fun. A new generation of hot hatches, didn't we? We got cars like the Punto Sporting, we got a new generation of hot Fiestas, there were various hot Renault Clios, and of course then we had the Japanese, like the hot Honda Civics and so on. The hot hatch was well and truly back.
It was.
And in the UK, it was because of either the Saxo VTS or the 106 GTI, because it was affordable. This was only a couple of grand more than a standard 106.
Yep, and you and I, we're roughly of the same generation in automotive terms. When we were 17, 18, 19, none of us or our friends, we weren't talking about getting MX5s.
No.
We wanted stuff like this.
We did,
so
did.
It was stuff like this was where the centre of gravity for your fun-seeking car enthusiast was.
And also, like we said with the MX5, that could be your one-car garage if you only need to take one passenger on occasion and, you know, shopping for two. But this could be your only car. If you've got a small family, you've got a little dog, 2 small kids in the back, still do 30, 35 to the gallon potentially. But then on a Sunday, you get up early and you do a bit of this. Oh yes. In the 90s then, you had a choice. You could have any one of the roadsters, the MX5, the Z3, the Barchetta, MGF, or you could have any one of the new pocket rockets. You could have a Punto or a Saxo or a 106 or a Clio or a Fiesta. There is no real winner here because there are no losers.
No, whichever way your tastes lie, there's not only is there something for you, but it's a choice of things, and they're all really good. That's a choice that's sort of missing from today's marketplace, and why these are such great classics, because that choice is still out there on the classic market, even if you can't do it on the new market. And even if you don't have specific nostalgia for a 106 GTI, it's an experience that you won't get in another car. So even if you've never driven one or had any interest in one before, I think we can say on the basis of this, find one, take it for a drive. They make sense as a modern classic as well.
There is no winner or loser in the hot hatch versus sports car battle, because we were all winners.
Exactly.
So let us know in the comments, would you go MX5 or 106 GTI? Would you go roadster or hot hatch? How much fun did you have with them back in the day? I'm having a lot of fun now, I'll tell you.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.